Good morning, or to those who are in East Africa, good evening. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Denise Richter. I've already told some of you that this journey felt surreal to me, and now that I have both feet on the ground, I've summarized it in 6 points of what I learned in East Africa. Number 1, you can temporarily stop a radiator leak with 4 to 5 tea bags. If tea bags are not available, use zebra droppings. Donkey droppings will work also. Antelope droppings won't work. Antelopes have 4-chambered stomachs, and so they digest almost everything before passing the remainder. Number 2, in the eyes of a 13-year-old missionary kid, I can't carry heavy things because I'm elderly and fragile. Number 3, we are blessed to live in the U.S. with modern health care. It is our God-given duty to share our knowledge and finances with the people of developing nations. Number 4, Chris and Tim have roles beyond those of team leader, translator, English as a second language teacher, and homeschool teacher. They're responsible for member care, which includes the physical, social, and emotional well-being of the translators and missionaries on their team, as well as the families in the villages of the 9 people groups. As the rich white people, they are also have many expectations put on them by the townspeople of Musoma. Number 5, the gifts that you sent them for each family member, as well as Braden's birthday presents, were appreciated beyond what you can imagine. Some of those things are simply not available in Kenya and Tanzania, and those that are may be beyond the reach of a missionary budget. And number 6, God is alive and well in East Africa. I need to make him more visible in my words and actions as well.
Hi, and I'm Liz Nygren. I had been in Africa only a couple of days when it dawned on me what it meant to be in a third world country. Infrastructure was lacking. Safety included locked gates and armed guards, and you couldn't always count on the police to protect and serve. It took a while for me to notice a pattern. The places we stayed all had locked gates and guards posted during the night. Tim only left the cars in gated and guarded parking lots. And on the road to Mombasa, the only road to the coast, the police had checkpoints every 50 miles or so to prevent robberies on the roads. I wouldn't say that I dwelled on my personal safety in Africa, but it was something that made an impression on me daily. Luckily, we truly benefited from Tim and Chris's experience and care. But why did this make such an impression on me? I don't know. Maybe it was God trying to convey to me what our missionaries live with every day. I've always known that God is working around me, that he's faithful, and that he answers prayers. I've seen it, but not like I saw it for the 17 days that I was in Africa. And here's some of the ways that we saw God working. God answered our prayer for safe travel. Air travel was great. We were never even close to missing a connection. Our bags made it. In Nairobi, we were missing a bag. Of course, it was the one with all the gifts for the Gilmores in it. But 2 airport workers, and 15 minutes later, and it was found. At customs, no one looked at our bags, which could have been a problem with all the supplies that we brought with us. Safety on the roads. Boy, you noticed if you were a friend of mine on Facebook, any of my posts, I would always say, we're traveling tomorrow, pray for travel. And if you emailed me, I asked for the same thing. It's pretty much all I ever asked for because those roads are crazy. And God answered prayers that we didn't even know we were supposed to be praying for. Lois, the 16-year-old girl that you saw, was someone who what the SIL group got to help us with the 3 to 6-year-olds at the conference. We would not have been able to do this without her. She spoke 5 languages. She spoke Dutch, German, English, French, and of course Swahili. Without her, communication with our Dutch and German-speaking children would have been difficult. Not to mention that she was wonderful with the children. In the Mwanza airport, we sat down in the waiting area and an older white woman sat next to us and started up a conversation. We learned that she was a missionary in Tanzania working with children orphaned by AIDS. After chatting for a time, she was able to talk us through how to get our luggage in Nairobi without having to go through customs and immigration again, thereby saving us some $60 worth of travel visas. God is so good. When we came home and added up all of our expenses, we had $53 left, and if we'd had to purchase those visas, we would have been negative. God showed me that his people are the same all over the world. For me, this was head knowledge, and really seeing God show this truth made a big impact on me. We attended a village church service outside of Mwanza, and the 3-hour church service went by quickly. The speaker called us to be ambassadors for God, and that sounds a lot like Pastor Brian telling us to make God look good. Joshua was the theme of the conference we'd just been at, and guess what book they spoke from at that church service? It was Joshua. And the pastor there made the same points, or many of the same points, that the sermon of the British pastor who was at the conference. And Tim translated for us, and this is a sermon that I could have heard right here in WCC. I walked out of that church service feeling welcomed and connected with all those fellow Christians. So many times during the trip, we prayed for protection, we prayed for safety, for children that were with us, for stamina and wisdom for ourselves, for the Gilmores. And I think when you step outside of your comfort zone in a place so totally unlike the safe and secure U.S., your prayers and what they mean to you take on a deeper meaning. At least they did for me. They became much more than a list on a page of my prayer journal. While we were there, we had to rely on God each day for what we needed, and there was no being independent or self-reliant like there is at home. Having the experience has truly changed what prayer means to me, and I came home with a page of specific prayer requests from missionaries at the conference, and some of them have actually been answered.
Well, I was told that there are a couple of funny things that I have to share. Some of you saw on Facebook the posting about Ask About the Gecko. Well, one morning when I was starting to get dressed and I picked up my pants, yes, a gecko come running out of them. And it scurried up the wall and stayed in my room all week long, I think. I tried not to think about them. One of the other things that we found entertaining and funny was how they used English language over there. They aren't perfectionist about all the nuances that we have in English. And one of the things that happened was that we were going through passport control between Kenya and Tanzania. Tim and Chris went first and explained who we were and what we were doing there. And each person had their picture taken and their fingerprints done. Okay, so I walk in the little booth and take my picture. The guy's nice and friendly and seems okay. And I started to do the fingerprint, and he shakes his head, no. And I'm going, what? And he goes, you're too old. So I guess I'm not a security risk for that country. But then at other times, they would be very politically correct in what they had to say and in their signs. A lot of their signs always would start with polite notice, no parking. So it was just interesting how they used English over there. Another way that we created some humor and survival also was to create a point system for all the bathrooms and the outhouses. Now, just to give you an idea, there was a very special point given if it had a door. So God met our needs daily, every step of the way. We struggled before we left with a budget of how much we're going to need, what's it going to cost, and we had determined that we were going to pay for all the gas for that Land Cruiser and all the food while we were with the Gilmores. And either food was expensive or cheap. Motels or the resorts were very expensive, except for one very bad cheap one. And gas was always expensive. So we got down to the last day, and Liz already talked about how we met the lady that helped us get through customs and saved us all that hassle with the luggage. And God helped us to meet our budget. And it was truly a God thing, because we would not, with all the variables, have been able to make it. And so you guys were all a part of us actually having just the right amount of support. In closing, my personal lesson is one of understanding how it feels to constantly live in need, unable to truly meet those needs yourself, and to rely on God to provide them. I'm a very independent person. I don't need anyone. I don't like to ask for help or rely on anyone, especially men. So I tend to push God aside, and I just forge ahead on my own, forgetting that there are many areas in my life where I do need God. The Gilmores live in this area of constant need. They need protection, good health, mental and emotional encouragement, wisdom for their daily decisions with the people around them, and yes, for financial support. So please continue to keep them in your prayers. Tim, Chris, Camden, Tirza, and Braden. And this week, all of you will be receiving a special Gilmore Times as a thank you from them to WCC.